All right, all right. So, welcome to Bible Life Ministries Bible Study, the Power Hour. We are preparing people for a prepared place. You are now entering a no judgment zone where we preach and teach to reach. So, leave the hate alone, mute your phones, and enjoy Bible study in the comforts of your own home. We thank you again for joining the Ragsdale's channel here on YouTube. We thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you for the love that you guys have all showed us since we started this channel. We thank you for the comments that you guys put on each episode. We thank you for the sharing of the channel also. Just want you all to know that we are going to be in Isaiah 10 today. We're going to do verses 1 through 19. And just want to say thank you. We just want to say thank you. But first, before we start, we want to send a very special prayer up for our brother Elder Mary and his family. He lost his father a couple of days ago, and we just want to let him know that we love him and just sending a lot of love and encourage towards his way, him and his brothers, and the family that's dealing with a lot of things that's going on right there. They're getting ready to bury his father or what have you. Pastor Curtis L. Murray was his name. So his memorial is set for September 30th at First Baptist Church in Wagner, Oklahoma at 11 a.m. Just in case you want to go out and support Elder Mary and his brothers and that family, for Pastor Curtis Murray. So just if you run into him and you see him or you just think about him on this day, just send him a call, give him a call or send him a text. Let him know that you're thinking about him because I've never lost my parent, but I can just only imagine what he's going through. So just make sure y'all pray for him. Send him he needs all the encouragement that he needs because he's the one that's preparing for his father's burial and stuff. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the Bible study. I was trying to wait a few minutes to let people join in. You can also join on the line. We are also on the line as well. But make sure you please, please, please mute your phones on the line. Okay. So we're going to get started. Chapter 10, verses 1. I'm going to read verse 1 through 4. And it says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless." And verse 3 says, "And what will ye do in the day of visitation?" That word visitation is meaning judgment. God is asking them, "What will you do in the day of my judgment? And in the desolation which shall come from far." From far is he's describing Assyria. That's what he's describing right now, meaning that their own people is going to turn against them. "To whom will ye flee for help?" He's asking them, "Who will you turn to for help when I come upon you for your judgment day? And where will you leave your glory?" So verse 4 says, "Without me, they shall bow down under the prisoners." The prisoners are the people that they've taken from. "And they shall fall under the slain. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still." So in this, God was talking to the Assyrian army, just so you guys know who God was talking to. So if we go back to to chapter 7 and chapter 9, you will understand who he was talking to. So verse 1 through 4 is it's saying, "A woe was prophesied on these rulers who robbed the needy and oppressed the poor." And they wrote unjust decrees. That's what he was describing in verse 1 when he was saying that they were writing out grievances which they were prescribed, meaning they were lying in order to get ahead. You know, when the judgment of God falls upon them, they will not have him to turn to. And he said that, "Who will you be able to turn to?" whenever I come upon you for your judgment. They would not have them to turn to, and they would lose everything, all of the wealth and stuff that they stole from these people, the widows, the fatherless kids that God is speaking of here in verse 2. And they stole these things through being crafty. Being crafty means they were being wicked and evil and sneaky. They were doing it up under God's God. He sent them out to do it, but they were just being sneaky and undermining is what they were doing. So the explanation for that is I read four different scriptures. There are four different scriptures that I read that outline God's judgment. And one began with how Job was speaking of his integrity. If we all know the story of Job, we know that Job was a very humble man. And Job went through a whole lot of things during the judgment. God allowed the devil to be free to go against Job, but he knew that he was using the devil in order to serve his purpose. So the devil didn't know what God's purpose was, but God had a purpose for Job. He sent him through so much turmoil. He lost all of his kids. His wife turned against him. He was sick. His body was breaking down, going through all these different things. But Job still decided that he was going to serve God no matter what was going on. He knew God's strength. He knew God's wrath. And he was asking himself, if I turn away from God, what will my wrath be? That's the question that he was asking himself. I know that God's wrath is mighty. So he was asking himself that. What will my wrath be? What will my judgment be if I turned away from God? So that was Job 13 and 14. And in Isaiah 13 and 16, there was the fall of Babylon to Medes. So what we're studying right now is the fall of Judah and Israel to the Assyrians. But yet God, he let Babylon uh go against a couple of cities, but Babylon used it for their own benefit. They didn't listen to God. They decided that they wanted to do their own thing. So God sent a judgment against them, and their judgment was for their fall from another city. That was in Isaiah 13 and 6. And in Hosea 9 and 7, there was a judgment for adultery. God was asking, am I not supposed to judge? Why do you feel like I should just let these people be free to just go around and adulterate and fornicate and do the things that they want to do? Am I not supposed to send judgment against these people? And Jeremiah 9 and 9 was judgment over spiritual and civil corruption. God's judgment is evidence in each of these scriptures. He's asking these people, am I not supposed to judge these things that have been done? God's judgment is real, even against us, even in this day. He judges against us too, because we go about things thinking that we're free to just do whatever it is that we want to do. Yeah, he lets us do it in that time, but just guess what? Just know that when he's done, we're going to be judged also. And I believe his wrath is mightier than anything that can happen to us here on this earth. And like I said, for us today, uh, the way that the Syrian army is going about doing things, we call this in our days today, where we're living in, people are robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I describe this as our messy system and how they're robbing our people from their social security. They take from our checks. They take from our checks before we even see the money that they're going to take, $200 and $300 at a time. Your check may be $800, but when you finally get it, it's five something because they've taken everything off the top, and that is supposed to be a promise to pay you for later. Excuse me. Social Security is supposed to be funds that we get for when it's our time to retire or our time not to be able to work, just in case something like we get sick or something or disabled or something. But that money sometimes is not there, and then they come up with a reason why the lack of funds you get is somehow your fault, but they're the ones that are in control of how it come out your paycheck to begin with. That's what God is saying to the Assyrian government right now in verses 1 through 4. They took from the poor, the widows, and the fatherless children because they were the weaker of the people. He asked them in verse 3, where will you turn? Where will you go? Where will you hide? Where will you hide all of that wealth that you have gained from robbing. Without me, there will be no coverage. That's what God is letting them know. Without me, there will be no coverage. He's letting them know that they will lose it all. They will fall harder and farther than the ones that they stole from. They will not only be among them, but under them that are being slain in this water they have created. That's what God was letting them know. You're not going to be amongst the people that you're going against because I told you to do it, but you're going to be under them. You're going to be less than them. It'll be more of them that'll stay alive than you because he knew that once he put that wrath out of judgment, that a lot of his people were going to turn to him. And that was God's plan. He had a purpose. So God was letting them know that his judgment is upon them, and his judgment is mightier than any man on earth could ever do. And they're about to find out in the next couple of verses because he's gonna judge them. So we're gonna start with verses 5 through 7 with God's judgment on the arrogant Assyrian army. So verse 5 says, O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger and the staff in thy hand is my indignation. So that is woe to the Assyrian. The woe is you need to stop. What are you doing? Slow down. If we go back and think about what Pastor, one of his messages a few weeks ago was woe, the 7 woes. You got to slow down a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. Like, what are you doing? So chapter and verse 6 says, I will send them against a hypocritical nation. Hypocritical is meaning uh like we say about some of the church people today. You in church and you saying that you going to church in order for you to listen to the word of God so that you can be better, you can better yourself, but you going in there and coming out with your nose snared up, looking at people. And the army that he's talking about that's being hypocritical is because he sent them out on a mission, and their mission was not being completed only for them to suffice what they wanted to do. They were going against what God was telling them to do to benefit themselves. He said, and hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets, like the mire of the streets. 7 says, howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so. So he's saying that the king thinks he's slick, but he's not slick because he thinks just because God gave him a mission to do, he can use it to benefit himself. So God's telling him, no, you're not slick. I know exactly what you're doing. I know what your heart is thinking. But it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. So God is letting you know, I know exactly what you're doing. So just know your my wrath is about to come upon you, and you are not gonna like it when I get through with you. So in the next verse, God will use Assyria to punish Judah, but the Assyrians have bigger plans. That's what God was saying. I know your heart. I know exactly what you're planning on doing, but I'm still gonna use you to get my purpose across. But I'm gonna let you get yourself out there and look stupid. And when I'm done with you, I'm gonna get rid of you. The king has plans to build up his empire with the power that God has given him. He was going around boasting and bragging that his commanders are all kings, you know, saying different crazy stuff and just being a person. I ain't gonna say the word, but being one of them people, meaning that they can stand up to anybody that has come up before them, and he was just as great as they were or still is. The guy was letting him know before he even come out, saying stuff like, "Oh, you think you bad, but you're not bad. You're gonna sit here and do what I asked you to do." And in that, he was gonna be through with him. Syria was an unintentional instrument in the hand of God. You know, an instrument, and what I mean by that was God knew what he was using them for. He knew what he wanted to use them for. So he would just use them as an instrument, like a tool. That's what God used them for. He said, woe to the Assyria, the rod of my anger. In the previous section, Isaiah 7 and 1 through 10 and 4, the Lord revealed that he would use Assyria as an instrument of judgment against Syria, Israel, and Judah. But what about Israel, Assyria? Weren't they even more wicked than Syria, Israel, or Judah? Yes, the Assyrians were wicked. Yet the Lord could use them as the rod of my anger. At the same time, none of this excuses Syria. So the Lord says, "Woe to Assyria." He was telling them, you need to slow down because you're not exempt from my wrath. You're not exempt. You're still gonna get exactly what I'm gonna give you. Just keep on waiting. Just keep on doing what you're doing. That's what he was telling you. It's like you trying to discipline, chasten a kid that's out there that's still doing wrong after you've already corrected them, after you've already explained to them what not to do, but yet they still go out there and do it. You give them a rope, but they take a mile. You give them an inch, they take a mile. And this is what Assyrian doing. So the same thing happened when judgment occurred in the case of the Babylonians. I was explaining that to you in verses 1 through 4. God raised up the Babylonian armies between 605 and 686 BC to punish Judah. If you go back to Habakkuk 1 6 through 11 and read that. And then he announced judgment on Babylon in Habakkuk 2 6 through 17, and in Isaiah 14 and 5. The rod of my anger, the staff in whose hand is my indignation. The rod and the staff were sticks used by shepherds to guide and correct their sheep. God is saying that Assyria was like a stick in his hand, used to correct Assyria, Israel, and Judah. Like we if we think about puppets, how they use the string in order to dance them around. God was using Assyria to do his will. They were like puppets in his hand. But the king thought he was just doing something so bad. Oh, well, he gonna give me this free range, so I'm just gonna take it and just run with it and do what I want. But God was letting him know, you still my puppet. You still gonna be dangling off of my string. When I get ready to cut them strings, you gonna fall. That's exactly what God was letting him know. And the next verse said, I will send him against an ungodly nation and against the people of my wrath. In this case, Assyria was on a mission from God. They were doing the Lord's will, running his errands when they came against Syria, Israel, and Judah. God gave them permission. I will give them charge. He gave them permission to seize the spoil, to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mare of the streets. Yet he does not mean so, nor does his heart think so. That's God talking about the king. He knew he wasn't going to mean it, but he still needed him to do it in order for his purpose to be served. Since Assyria was an instrument in God's hands, since they were doing the will of the Lord, does this excuse their attack on Syria? Does that excuse their attack on Israel? Does it excuse their attack on Judah? No, it doesn't, because the way that they were going about doing it was wrong. It wasn't God's way. Though they were instruments in God's hand, they did not mean so, nor does his heart think so. They didn't care at all about God's will or glory in the matter. Instead, it was all about them. Uh, it is in his heart to destroy and cut off not a few nations. Assyria didn't care about the will or glory of God. They wanted to destroy and cut off many nations. God only appointed him to do his will for three nations: Judah, Syria, and Israel. His people. God was only talking about his people, not everybody else. And see, that's what we do. We try to invite everybody else in to our black people. When we're sending out a message to our own people, God, we're just supposed to be trying to contact our own people, like our black boys, our black men. They try to talk to them and reach them in a certain way. But here, I'm not being racist or anything like that. But we still go out and grab other people's people and bring them in. Let them take care of their own people. You focus on your people, because what God wants for our people is greater than what he wants for somebody else. He has a plan for us all. But in that point in time, what he wants is for you to do what he's telling you to do in that specific area in that specific time. So just focus on that one thing. Don't go out and be broad. Then that's what the Assyrians was doing. They were being too broad. They were being too boastful. They were bragging too much. When he blesses us with a house or a car, or he blesses us with financial uh beneficial, if he blesses our finances to improve, don't go out and brag and be boastful, because the same way he gave it to you, he can take it back. And that's the same thing he was showing these Syrians. So we go to Psalm 76 and 10 says, surely the wrath of man shall praise you. God can use the wickedness and the carnality of man to further his will without ever approving of the wickedness or the carnality. So when you get corner minded, he done with you anyway. There's nothing else that he can do for you. He'll use you to get his point across, but once you get corner minded, like I said, that's the devil. You've already turned away from God. You've turned away from him, and chose your own way. So he lets go. He lets go of that. In fact, God is totally justified in judging the very wickedness and carnality that he used. He's justified because he's God. He's the only one that can be justified in something. He created us all. He created the heavens and the earth and everything here. He created it. So only he can judge, fully judge. We think that we're in control of sin. We're not in control. We're just here. We're just mere instruments. Is the instrument is not greater than the king that created it. We're just worker bees, you know. The pattern is repeated over and over through the scriptures. Joseph's brothers, if we go back and think about the story of Joseph, his brothers sinned against Joseph, but God used it for his purpose, and he disciplined those brothers. Okay, Saul sinned against David, but God used it for his purpose, and he judged Saul. There it is. Judas sinned against Jesus, but God used it for his purpose. And guess who he got? Just guess who got judged? Judas. So God uses people to get his purpose across. He used the devil each day. That's why he set him free. He let him roam out here free to do whatever it is that he wants to do. But in the end, sin is death. That's the devil. So you keep sinning. Go on out there and keep doing what you're doing. This should help with questions that trouble many people. That everybody always asks. How can God do this? How can God be good but still be evil? And how can he still let evil be done to me? How can he let me be molested? How can he let me be raped? You know, but we still forget those people are gonna get it. They don't get away with nothing. Nobody gets away with anything. We can't often know in advance exactly how God will bring out the good, but we can trust that he is who he says he is, that he will, as he continue to yield to him, seek him, that he will protect us and provide. Just keep trusting and believing in his word. The second question that people always do: doesn't God care about what they did to me? That's that woe is me all the time. Yes, he does. He cares. And God will bring his correction or judgment according to his perfect will and time. Each day we're here on this earth, there will be someone who we feel has wronged us. It is for us to get back at them. Is it for us to get back at them? No, it is not. That's why he tells us to pray daily and night. That's why he tells us that vengeance is his. He sees all things before they happen. We must understand and we must know that. He sees things before they even happen to us, y'all. He knows it's gonna happen. He already knows the punishment that he will be handed down to whoever the culprit is. Trust me. They're gonna get it. So if we get in the way of his vengeance, rest assured that he'll get us too. Rest assured, he will feel his wrath as well, and it will be greater than what he puts on the person that his vengeance is for. That's what he's telling these Assyrians. Step out the way. I'm only using you for a little bit of time. So don't go in there thinking that we can go in there and be vengeful. Uh, that's why he says, "Peace, be still." For the past couple of weeks, the devil has been busy on our side of town. The devil has been coming against my husband and I, but God has told us both to be still. We can't afford to lose what God has blessed us with. Right now, we're in the middle of in a we're in the middle of a step ladder. Right now, we're in the middle of taking that next step in life. We already took the first step, which was getting married. Our next step is to buy us a home. You can't always let people know what you're doing, because we always feel like if we let people know what we're doing, they're gonna be able to stop our blessings. You can't stop nothing that God has already set out for you to get done. But what will happen is the devil will send stumbling blocks before you. And then when you see those stumbling blocks come, you feel like oh we man, every time I turn around it's always something. It's always something. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm just gonna speak for myself when I say this. I be want to put them in their place. I do. When I see them coming against my husband, and that I know that is a true man of God, and he does nothing to nobody. He don't go out and deliberately set out to harm people. All I see him doing is he like to crack jokes. He like to make people's day. He like to make people laugh. He spread the word of God all the time. And he just has so much love and peace in his heart. And that's what he goes out and spread out. So like when we get to work, we speak to people, you know what I'm saying? Because we have to speak to people, because that's just the love of God. That's our light that's shining. God don't tell us to go in there and act like we stuck up, because we're no better than nobody else. We're all doing the same thing. We punching the clock. But when we get to work, we don't ask that, people just run all the time. But you're gonna get that wherever you go, whether it's at work, whether it's at the store, whether it's in your family, around your friends or wherever. I still feel like I gotta protect him. That's not my place. That's God's place to protect him. That's not my place to go out and say, well, you, this. That's not my place to do that either. So God told me, daughter, be still and shut your mouth. That's what he tells me to do. Be quiet. I feel like when my husband comes to me to vent, I feel like I need to go out and try to say something to these people. That's not what God says. He tells me to keep my mouth closed. Because what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You lose your job, what you gonna do? You lose the way that you survive in your family, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna do anything. He tells me to shut my mouth. Because if I put them in their places, and I stand a chance to lose much greater than they do. My husband tell me all the time that God is no punk, and we all have our day. We in the flesh believe that the day should be right now. God doesn't work on our time, y'all. He don't work on our time. He works on his own time. God doesn't when we take a step in the right direction for God, just know the devil is always on your heels. So be like a tree deeply rooted beside the waters and unmoved. Okay? So when God is using people, when he's using these instruments, these unintentional instruments, let him use them. You just stay out the way. You be his instrument and you be still. You do what he tells you to do and not what you feel like you need to do. Just be still. So in verses 8 through 14, we're going to go through 8 through 14. And this is where we're going to be talking about how the Assyrian king thought his people was better than the rest of the people. So verse 8 says, for he said, are not my princes altogether kings? He's asking God, are they not altogether better? Are they not better than the ones that you've already used before? And verse 9 says, is not Calno as Karshmish? Is not Hamath as Arpad? Is not Samaria as Damascus? If we listen to all three of these different places, he's comparing these are the places that God have already wrath through. He's already sent judgment down through. He's asking them, are they not better than these places? God overturned certain things for these nations. He's comparing his people to those people. Verse 10 says, as my hand have found the kingdoms of the idols, and whose graven images did excel them of Jerusalem and of Samaria. 11 says, shall I not, as I have done unto Samaria and her idols, so do to Jerusalem and her idols? This is still the king that's talking. 12 says, "Wherefore it shall come to pass that when the Lord hath performed his whole work upon Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Assyria and the glory of his high looks." That's God telling him what he's about to do. Whenever it's all said and done, I will be the one that punish him. 13 says, "For he said, by the strength of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, for I am prudent, and I have removed the bounds of people, and I have robbed their treasures, and I have put down the inhabitants like a valiant man." This is the king boasting and bragging about himself again. 14, "And my hand have found as a nest the riches of the people, and as one gathereth eggs that are left, have I gathered all the earth. And there was none that moved the wing or opened the mouth or peeped." Like I said, God will use Assyria to punish Judah for the Assyrians, but they have bigger plans. The king has plans to build up his empire with the power that God has given him. He's boasting and bragging that his commanders are all kings, meaning they can stand up to anybody that has come up before them and be just as great as they were or still is. His threats are idle, but Israel and Judah saying that they are small. They are small things to a giant. Right now, what he's doing is he's trying to belittle God, is what he's doing. He's belittling God. "Oh, you set me on this journey right here. That ain't nothing. That ain't nothing to compare to what I've already done myself." He's saying that he's greater than God, compared to the one that he's already conquered before them. In other words, he was saying that the command of God that God had given him to follow was nothing compared to his own. Like I just said, he was better than God, but little did he know God was about to show him just how mighty he was. So, with that, God is showing his the arrogance of the Assyrian king. He's about to bring it to light. He's about to show him that you just being arrogant. You being too arrogant. I gave you a mission. The mission was this, this, and this, but you set out on another mission. So I'm gonna let you complete your mission. But once I'm done with that, you just get ready. So when he asked, "Are not my princes altogether kings?" Assyria had such an inflated view of themselves that they regarded their princes to be on the level of the kings of other nations. The princes in this is his commanders, the people in his army. That's who he's referring to in this verse. "As I have done to the Samaria and her idols, shall I not also do to Jerusalem and her idols?" Here the Lord described the proud, arrogant heart of the Assyrians. He was breaking them down step by step. Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, which was given over to gross idolatry. That's one of God's judgments. He was, and when I was when I gave y'all the four scriptures in the beginning, that's one of his judgments. He was judging these people on them being idolaters and fornicators and all of that stuff. Jerusalem was the capital of the southern kingdom of Judah, which still maintained some worship of the Lord God. In their pride, the Assyrians thought Lord God nothing more than one of the idols that they had conquered in Samaria or in many other cities. Like I said, he was saying God was this small, saying God was less than him. The Assyrians were in for a rude awakening, though. So the cities that were mentioned in verses 9 and 10 came under Assyrian control between 740 and 721 BC. And none of the guides of these areas had provided the slightest help. It was assumed that the idols in verse 10 of Jerusalem, that the idols of verse 10 of Jerusalem were equally impotent. He was bragging here about the control he had over the cities he had captured before God. Remember, I said that. And the next verse said, "I will punish the fruit of the arrogant heart of the king of Assyria and the glory of his haughty looks." Let's talk about these haughty looks, the pride. Let's talk about that. The pride of Assyria and her king was found in his arrogant heart and exposed by his haughty looks. How much pride can be revealed by a haughty look? Hmm. The Bible describes God's opinion of haughty looks. The haughty look, a pride heart, and the plowing of the wicked are sin, y'all. And that's in Proverbs 21:4. Excuse me. The one who has a haughty look and a proud heart, him I will not endure. That's Psalm 101 and 5, verse 5. For you will save the humble people, but will bring down haughty looks. That's Psalm 18:27. God don't like haughty looks. Pride comes before a fall. That's what he says. So the Assyrians is being prideful right before they fell. So don't go around here being prideful, looking at people with your nose all snared up in there because you done been blessed with something that you feel like you were well endowed to get. No. But when God blesses you with something, it has nothing to do with you being nice to somebody. It has nothing to do with you helping somebody. That's just God's way of showing you that I love you. I said that you are supposed to have more abundance in life. That's his way of saying that. So don't go around thinking that you're better than somebody because you've been blessed. Be humble at all times. Stay humble. Don't go around boasting and bragging, like I said. And that's what the Assyrian king did. He bragging about his commanders and how bad they are. But then in the end, they're gonna be like a pile of dirt. By the strength of my hand, I have done it. Again, the Lord is revealing the heart of Assyria. They glorified in their own strength and wisdom. By my wisdom, for I am prudent. They exaggerated their power. We do that too. I have gathered all the earth. So we're going to talk about Julius Caesar for a moment. We all know we get that in school. They teach us about Julius Caesar. So I read about this, and Julius Caesar was a very prideful man. His heart was full of pride. When he had his military conquest, he went around talking about himself. And some of the words that he described about himself was "Veni, vidi, vici," meaning I came, I saw, I conquered. I. He was talking about himself. He put himself above everything else. He put himself on this pedestal. I did this. I did that. I conquered this. I conquered that. But he left out God. He didn't do anything by himself. But there was a man called Charles V, and he had a better heart. He had an army. He did the same thing, and they won. But in his words, he changed the words around. The same words that Caesar used, he just added to it. His words was "Veni, vidi, sed Christus vici." His words were, "I came, I saw, but Christ conquered." He gave praises to where praises was due because he knew his strength was not mightier than God's strength. He knew that what he had already conquered, him and his army, he knew that he could not have done it without Christ. He knew that he couldn't have done it. So that's why he added Christ in there. He made Christ the above all things. So Charles V gave Christ his just due by bringing him out instead of taking credit for something he knew he would not have had the power to do if he had not been for the Lord on his side. Right? That's what we should do in praising God for each step, whether small or big in our life. Whatever we're going through in our life, we're not able to get through any of that stuff without God. And there's a song that says, if it had not been for the Lord, the love of the Lord on my side, where would I be? Where would I be? Where would we be right now if God didn't love us? Where would we be if He didn't send His mercy and grace to sustain us? Where would we be? We'd be dead under a rock somewhere, dead somewhere, and not saved. Ain't no telling where we'd be running around here looking like a bunch of stragglers. But He loves us just that much, so we don't run around looking like that. We have to give praise where praises is due. We can't just take credit for God bringing us through the fight. All the glory goes to God. That's it. He said that he knows the plans that he has for us, not the other way around. We can't go out and tell God our plans. Tell him your plans and see what you get. You don't get far. Not the other way around. We have to walk therein and give him praises and thanks for each step of the way and stay out of the way, meaning stay out of self. Pastor preaches on that all the time. You got to stay out of self. That's why the Assyrian king and his army got the wrath that they did from God because he was too into himself. boasting and bragging about all of his accomplishments. We do that today. We do it. We boast and brag about the things that we've accomplished. We go get a degree. Oh, I went and got my master's degree. Oh, I'm a certified doctor. Or I'm this. Or I'm that. But just don't know. You wouldn't have been able to do that without God. You go and you pray to God the whole step of the way. But once you get it, you forget about God. That's what the Assyrian king did. He boasting and bragging about all the things that he's accomplished in his world, but just forgot he couldn't have done that without God. Um, the idea was to show his people, Israel and Judah, that he was their God. That was the idea. That's what God's plan was, to use the Assyrian king and his army to go out so that God's people can come back to him. For them to come to him and not worship other idols. But the king took it too far and sent them further away from God. So God had to show them just how it felt, and it was worse. So we're going to start verses 15 through 19. Verse 15 says, shall the axe boast itself against him who chops with it? Hmm. Mm. Is the axe mightier than the person that's holding it? Is the axe mightier than the person that's chopping this tree down? No, because if you're not holding the axe can't do the work itself. Mm. Or shall the saw magnify itself against him that shaketh it? No, the saw can't work by itself. The saw got to have somebody to do the work with it. As if the rod should take itself against them that lift it up, or as if the staff should lift up itself as if there were no wood. 16. Remember what God is describing here. He's using thy rod and thy staff. We know that's in Psalms 23. That's in the Father's prayer. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. He's always using symbols and instruments in order to identify himself in the ways that he's using things. Verse 16 says, therefore shall the Lord of hosts, send among his fat ones leanness, and under his glory he shall kindle a burning like the burning of a fire. Verse 17 says, and the light of Israel shall be for a fire, and his Holy One for a flame. And it shall burn and devour his thorns and his briars in one day. That's that wrath he's talking about, y'all. I don't want that. And shall consume the glory of his forest and of his fruitful field, both soul and body, and they shall be as when a standard bearer fainted. He says soul and body. That means ain't nothing gonna be saved from him, nothing gonna be left. He's taking it all. Your spirit, your soul, he don't want none of it left. Get up, just get up, get rid of it. And verse 19 says, and the rest of the trees of his forest shall be few, that a child may write them. So let's get on to explaining what God is talking about. So when he says that a child shall write them, a child will be able to count them. That's what he's meaning by that. Shall the axe boast itself against him who chops with it? The Lord uses the pictures of an axe, a saw, a rod, and a staff to make the point that his instruments should never take credit for what the worker does with the instrument. That's what I was explaining to you. God is using the instruments, detailing what he's doing. You're not greater than the instrument. You're not greater than God. None of us are. If the doctor is performing surgery, can the tools he's using take credit for the operation being done? No. Meaning we are all tools for God. We are to follow the leader and do his will in the best way possible without going around taking credit for his will that's done. We are like worker bees. If anybody know about the worker bees, we know that they have a queen that sits in a nest and she's protected by all the bees of the hive. But while the queen is just sitting there in the nest, she's a protector. Like her radiance is giving them strength in order for them to be workers and go and do everything that they're supposed to be doing. All the while, they're all hovering around her and they're protecting her. But if she dies, they lost. If you've ever seen a video of a beehive when a queen dies, they lose her sense of feel. They lose her sense, but they know she's there, so they don't leave that nest. They just stay there. That's like if God takes his hands off of us and leaves us to our own devices, We'll be lost, y'all. We won't have nowhere to go. We won't know what to do with ourselves. We'll just be running around here like a bunch of worker bees without their queen. That's right. So you need to get yourself in order and get yourself together and quit going around boasting and bragging and think you better than the next person, because none of us are. I use suicide as an example. Suicide is like a very touchy subject for a lot of people, and if you haven't not been gone through suicide in a very I'll say a very not personal but interpersonal kind of way or whatever, you're not gonna understand it. And it's really not, I still don't understand it. So there that is. He has given you chance after chance to make it right with it. That means if you've attempted suicide 2, 3, 4, 5 times, God was always right there to stop you. Whoa, you don't need to do that. You need to stop. You need to rethink. You need to come back to me, regroup yourself, do this, do that. But yet and still, you still think that I can do this. You still, you'll pray for a little bit and then you'll run off and you go try it again. Come back, you'll pray for a little bit and you go run off and you come back and do it again. But once those chances are over, it's death. That's the suicide. God take his hands off of you. Um, Sin is death. Suicide is the evidence of his wrath. You have chosen your own fate, so God just let you go. God is a just God, but what he isn't is a punk. He's not a punk. He uses what he can to get his purpose served. Like I said, the wages of sin is death, y'all. That's why the devil roams freely so that God's will can be done. I said that earlier. He uses the devil so that souls will either turn to him and be free, or they're going to turn away from him and be condemned forever. I don't want to turn away from God and be condemned forever. So either way, the choice is yours. My choice is to serve God for all the rest of my days. So that's my choice. I don't want to be like that person that commits suicide and just take my life into my hand, because God is the only one that has power to give and take life. We're not here to give and take our own life. He created us, so he's the one that's going to be able to take us when our time comes, not before then. But he will let you take your own life. He'll take his hands off of it and just be like, I'm done with that. So whatever it is that you want to do, do it. And he won't feel nothing about it. That's you. That's on you. If it is easy for an unknowing instrument of God to become proud, is it also easy for a willing instrument of God to become proud? Sure is. That unwilling instrument is the Assyrian king. Jesus said we should have a different attitude. So likewise, you have done all those things which are commanded. Say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done what was our duty to do. That was in Luke 17:10. As wonderful as it is to be an instrument in the hand of God, the instrument deserves no special glory. We don't deserve no special glory. We are not supposed to run around here and be glorified. Only God is to be glorified. We are all instruments, as I stated before. All of us are instruments. So we just like worker bees up under God. He's our king, and we're the worker bees. Once he lets us go, that's it. We lost. Therefore, the Lord will send leanness amongst his fat ones, Assyria. Said fat and sassy at the time, but God will send leanness to them. His judgment will be like the burning of a fire among them, and it will consume the glory of his forest and of his fruitful field. The Lord will leave Assyria just a shadow of his former self. That's what he said. Uh, he told them that he was going to destroy them for their wicked deeds. He warned them. He told them that you just going to be just a pillar of dust once I get done with you. That's even for us. Once we going around here and we using the word of God to benefit ourselves, for our own benefit, to gain money, to gain control and to gain power over people, for our own selfish use, God is going to get tired of that. And once he gets tired of that, he's going to shut you down. We seeing that right now. We watch YouTube a lot, and we see a lot of these pastors and stuff on here. They're using oh, I prophesy to you. I prophesy to you. If you sow a seed of $1,000, God is gonna make you great, oh man of God. God is gonna build you up, oh woman of God. Lying. All that money and stuff is going in their pocket. But for the people that's out here that are following God and doing righteous deeds, we looked at stupid. We looked at like something is wrong, like, oh, yeah, they trying to put that money in their pocket, but yet and still we're out here doing the work of God with no pay. We're not looking for payment. We don't get on here and ask y'all to sow a seed of $5, sow a seed of $10. We don't ask y'all to get on here and tithe offer. We don't do that. I and the word says that we're supposed to do it with 10%, but he don't tell us where to put. He said put it in the storehouse. Your storehouse is your home. Your storehouse begins with where you live. That's your storehouse. And then once you store your house up, then you go out and you spread amongst those. You go out and you help your community. You go out and you build up those around you. That's what you do. You don't just bring everything in and you selfishly keep it. That's not what we do. Because once God sees all those things, he'll tear all of that down. Because he built it. He'll tear it right on down. So that's just like what our I'm gonna use our Let's Kill Cancer as an example. Because a lot of people are selfish. They're only thinking about what can I gain from this? So when we're going out and we're asking people, can we use your church? Can we use you as one of the acts for the Let's Kill Cancer concert? Can we do this? Can we do that? Well, what are we getting in pay? Well, what are you gonna give me? Or what are you gonna give me? This is not created for our own selfish gain. This was created so that God can get the glory from it. There are a lot of people that are out here hurting, that are lacking treatment because they don't have the funds to do it. It has nothing to do with them being sorry. A lot of people work hard every day just to make ends meet, but they're still not able to afford insurance. They go to the doctor and the doctors just lie to them because the doctors are there too for their own selfish gain. They trying to fill their pockets. You may run into a doctor or two that's not there just for their own selfish gain, and they will help you. You run into those people because my mom has been blessed to run into doctors like that, and they didn't do it for their own selfish gain. And I thank God for those doctors because they caught her brain tumor in time and they removed it. I thank God for the doctors that helped Elder Murray remove his cancer, and they were not there for their own selfish gain. He ran into a few, but I thank God for the outcome. That was he was able to walk through that, and God still was right there with it by him, and he didn't just go off on his own rant and just go crazy. But I'm just and when and as I come to an expedient close, as Pastor Ragsdale will say, I'm gonna just touch up right now. I'm gonna just tell y'all, follow God. Follow God in all that we do. We can't run around here being selfish. When God uses you in order to get his purpose done, you just be an instrument. Just be an instrument. Don't be Syria, because he gonna tell you, whoa, slow down. Oh, Assyrians, slow down. That's what he's going to tell you. I'm asking you to go out and do my will because I have a purpose. And the purpose is always bigger than what you think it is. So don't go out and think that you're better than the next person. If you see somebody that's in need, that's lacking some help, that's all you got to do is help them. Just help them. Be that ear that they need. Be that person that they need in that time. Don't go out and spread their business out there in the streets. That's not what they come to you for. If we're supposed to be workers of God, we're supposed to leave it, keep everything within, and let God spread the love. He's gonna shed his light through you. Don't go out there and spread ugliness. That's not God. God is not ugliness. God is peace. God is joy. God is love. Just spread those things if we're going to do anything. Always pray for one another. Care for one another. Don't get selfish in your own selfish ways, because we can do that too because of the things that we've all gone through in this life. But if God has brought you through the fire, then who are you to keep that to yourself? Who are you? That's why we do our testimony Tuesdays, so that we can go out and we can spread and show that God is real. God is love. God is still in the blessing business. That's why we do testimony Tuesdays. We got a testimony coming up this Tuesday from one of our sisters. She's about to share her testimony, and she went through a lot. They put a lot on mothers. They think just because we're mothers that there's a lot of things that we're supposed to take from kids. You birthed them, but you didn't make kids by yourself. That's why God says two. It's a collective, man and woman. We're supposed to come together and not work against each other. Like the moms that's out here going against these fathers and putting them on child support just for their own selfish gain. Sister, let me tell you, you're gonna get that back. You're gonna always reap what you sow. And we'll have a woman on here that's going to be talking about just that. She's going to tell you about the woman side for her being on child support, being put on child support. So she got a taste of what these men are feeling out here each day when these ungrateful women are putting them on child support for their own selfish gain, just so they can go out and still bop around and have more kids and be selfish. God is getting sick of the selfishness, people. It's what he did to Assyrian king. Your heart is wicked, and God is going to put a stop to it. Stop being wicked. Let these kids get to know their fathers. Let these kids get to know their moms. Let these kids be kids. Keep kids out of the middle of grown folks' stupidity. And when God is using you for a purpose, serve that purpose and don't serve your own purpose. So I thank you all for joining us on the line today. I'm done. And I thank you all for the likes and subscribes. I thank you for our viewers that was with us today. And again, pray for Elder Mary and his family. I asked you pray for my Easter family. We lost my auntie, my aunt Top. They buried her yesterday. So I ask that you pray for my two aunts that are left, my grandmother's sisters. So I ask that y'all pray for them. Pray for my Uncle Robert. He lost his wife. Just pray for everybody that has lost loved ones. If you're in touch with people right now that are losing people, pray for them. Genuinely pray for them. Not for your own selfish gain. So y'all be at peace. Y'all go with peace and be blessed until the next.